In-depth reports from the front lines of high-tech crime.
A college student checked out an adult entertainment website with the promise of cost-free viewing, but it ended up being anything but free, and the price tag took a toll on his phone bill. Find out how he got tricked and what you can do to avoid making the same mistake. It's all this week on CyberCrime.
CyberCrime, coming up tonight at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific.
Next on CyberCrime.
It says it's 100% free. Everything is free there, supposedly.
This college student thought he was downloading a free video from an adult entertainment website, but it wasn't free at all. We've got details.
Plus, a high-tech tool that traces guns. See how online leads help identify gun traffickers.
CyberCrime is brought to you by Symantec.
Welcome to the show. There's new love in town. It's a worm similar to love bug, but could be more destructive. Details in a few minutes. First, here's Jennifer with our top story.
All right, thanks, Alex. Please help. Long-distance phone charges $200 have appeared on a phone bill to the country of Chad. This coming from a cybercrime viewer who believes she's been the victim of an online scam. Well, she has, and she's not alone. We have a cybercrime consumer alert about a clever program that's hitting surfers right where it hurts, the wallet. Tora Lodin is a college student in San Francisco on scholarship from Norway. Like most college kids, he gets by on a small budget. Well, in April of this year, while Tora was going through his mail, he got hit with a phone bill large enough to throw his slim finances into a tailspin. It was for 2 long-distance phone calls to Chad, Africa. Calls Tora said he never made by phone.
It says it's for 2 phone calls to Chad, Africa, and they're for 31 minutes each, and the total was $357 for it. And I called him up and asked him, because I know I never called Chad, Africa. And I asked him, what is this? And they said, well, it is an adult entertainment phone number.
But again, Tora says he's never called an adult entertainment phone number. But he has been to online porn sites. And Tora, along with many others, has been the victim of a recent online scam. A scam significant enough to warrant the attention of Philip McKee with the Internet Fraud Watch in Washington, D.C.
Consumers are going to websites and being offered free music videos, free online games, free pornography, and are told that they need to download the Special Access program for use.
And therein lies the scam buried deep in the Special Access program. When Tora logged on to adultbuffet.com, he was asked to download a viewer program so he could watch what was advertised as a free adult video. Now, we can't show you too much of the website because it's extremely graphic, but when Tora downloaded the viewer, he mistakenly, without his knowledge, agreed to long-distance phone charges.
When I clicked on the link for the movie, I didn't know that my modem was going to be reset. I never heard of such a thing before. And I didn't hear the dial-up sounds that you can usually hear when you dial up the modem. I thought I was still connected through my SFSU Internet Access local phone number.
The software program that Tora inadvertently downloaded is clever. It's designed to turn off the ringer of your modem so you don't hear it redialing while it places the international call to Chad, Africa. In fact, surfers don't even know they've been scammed until their phone bill arrives, and by that time, it's too late.
If a consumer refuses to pay, there's very little AT&T can do except for requesting that the local telco cut off phone service and that they initiate a collection proceeding.
And that's exactly what happened to Tora. His phone service was cut off because he refused to pay the bill.
I lost phone service probably for about 2 weeks. I called Pacific Bell and asked them if they could separate that particular charge from my regular phone bill, since AT&T isn't my long-distance carrier, and they said that they could do that. So I paid the rest of my phone bill, and I got my phone connected again.
Part of what makes this particular scam successful is that consumers are lured into believing something they might normally pay for will be free. Now, in Tora's case, AdultBuffet.com did make mention in the user agreement that if a consumer downloads the player, they agree to pay phone charges to Chat Africa. And like most web surfers, Tora raced through a series of user agreements, clicking yes, without scouring the fine print.
I didn't read it because I thought it was a privacy statement, and I just clicked yes, I understand that this is confidential, which I don't believe it is, but
it is a growing problem and something that the Federal Trade Commission does plan on addressing, both in terms of current enforcement actions, because by stating in one location on a site that is clearly visible that a service is free and stating in another location that there will be a charge, that could be construed as a violation of fair marketing practices.
So how do the scam artists make money? McKee explains it's a revenue-sharing agreement between the site operators and the country the call is placed to.
These companies have arranged by contract with the foreign long-distance companies to have a revenue-sharing agreement. By increasing the total volume of calls that are coming in, they decrease the per-call cost to the long-distance company and make it possible for them to have a larger profit per call that they then share with the website owners.
I'm just trying to imagine how much money they've made off this little scam of theirs, considering they can charge these outrageous sums. I'm sure some people are too embarrassed to say anything about this, so they'd rather go ahead and pay the charge. But I'm not going to do that because I think something has to be done about it.
Now, Jennifer, the Federal Trade Commission is definitely the agency that would handle a complaint like this. What have they done? Have they taken any action?
Well, the FTC is investigating, and the Internet Fraud Watch has been formulating and gathering all the complaints, sending them over to the FTC, and the FTC is looking into whether or not they're going to take any action.
One very good thing also that we've talked about is that AT&T is actually blocking those specific calls that go to Chat Africa.
They are. AT&T got so many consumers calling them up saying, hey, I never made these calls to Chat Africa. I'm not going to pay the bill. But AT&T has decided to take some action on their own, and they are blocking calls to Chat Africa. Now, one thing with these website operators that the Internet Fraud Watch has told me is they're sort of one step ahead of the regulators in that now they're not even sending the calls to Chat Africa. They're sending them to a new country, Niue in the South Pacific.
Always moving.
It's hard to catch them.
Okay, well, thank you very much for this. We'll keep everyone up to speed on, of course, all the developments in this scam. Thanks. Shifting gears, we'd like your input on what kind of stories we do on cybercrime, so you should go to our website and cast your vote. If you'd like to see a story on cyberstalking, select A. If you're interested in online auction fraud, that's B. Or perhaps there's an online banking story you'd like to watch, that is C. How about an entire show dedicated to chaos theory? That is D. Just log on to cybercrime.com and make your pick. And while you're there, why not give your computer a checkup? Use our security scanners at the top right-hand side of our webpage. Our scanners can check your computer for the top 5 viruses, which now, of course, includes the love bug, its variants, and others like Happy99 and CIH. Our security analyzer can also check to see if your browser blocks adult-related material. Now, the scanner is here to help. So if there's something you like or dislike, please drop us an email at scannerfeedback@zdtv.com. Still ahead on cybercrime. Some Napster users are fighting back, saying they were wrongly cut off from the service. Details are next. There's a new, potentially more destructive worm, and while many are calling it a variant of the love bug, it's actually more like a cousin than an offspring. The good news is it's not spreading as quickly as the first love bug. The new virus, which our scanner checks for, is tricky because it mutates, meaning it changes every time you forward it. The subject line will read FW, which stands for forward, followed by the name of the attached file. The attached file name is chosen at random and will end in .vbs. Opening the attachment overwrites numerous files and may render your computer inoperable. And if you're using Microsoft Outlook, it spreads by forwarding the virus to all the names in your address book. For updates on the newest mutations, go to cybercrime.com. And on Friday, FBI top cop Michael Vadas addressed the investigation into the new worm.
Unlike the original love letter virus, this one appears to have started, at least in significant part, in the United States rather than spreading from Asia to Europe to the United States.
Meanwhile, Philippine investigators have until June 2nd to gather evidence against the only person charged in the original love bug case. 27-year-old Ronel Ramonez was taken into custody May 8th at the Manila apartment owned by his girlfriend, Irene de Guzman. He was later released. De Guzman's brother, Onel, has said he may have accidentally released the virus. Ramonez is presently charged under the Access Device Regulations Act, which deals primarily with credit card fraud, but whether the act applies in this case is questionable for Philippine law. This week, the government took its turn in the did-so, did-not dialogue with Microsoft. The Department of Justice continues to defend its proposed breakup of the company. Wednesday, the DOJ met before the judge who will decide the remedies for the company's antitrust violations. It was the final filing before the two sides meet again, face-to-face, in federal court. Microsoft maintains it will not be split in two, but the government wants to do just that.
I think the government will again say it doesn't go far enough. There's some real hardliners, particularly within the camp of the attorney generals in the states, who really think that the breakup is the only thing that's going to satisfy them.
The DOJ's official reply to Microsoft's remedy in the federal court is the end of the rebuttal phase. Next stop, oral arguments May 24th. And here is the latest on Napster. Nearly 10% of the users blocked from the service say they were mistakenly identified by Metallica. In fact, 30,000 of those users have sworn under oath they are not audio pirates. Meanwhile, rapper Dr. Dre has followed Metallica's lead in naming names. This time, though, there wasn't the fanfare of the May 11th showdown between Lars of Metallica and Napster. Instead, the names of more than 200,000 users accused of copyright infringement were faxed and also emailed to Napster's headquarters in San Mateo, California. Dr. Dre has asked Napster to block the MP3 copies of his work from being traded, but not to block the users allegedly trading that work. Coming up next on CyberCrime.
Investigators will have immediate and direct access to the statistics and information provided by that database.
The database is called Online Lead, and it's helping law enforcement across the country track down gun trafficking organizations. That story is next. But first, here's this week's timeline. What year did the following events take place? Notorious hacker Justin Peterson goes to jail for the first time for hacking and electronically stealing $150,000. The Russian space station Mir, Greece's first American, and the criminal trial of O.J. Simpson opens in L.A. Was it 1995, 1996, or 1997? I'll be back with the answer in 2 minutes. Now back to that timeline. Notorious hacker Justin Peterson goes to jail for the first time for electronically stealing $150,000. The Russian space station Mir, Greece's first American, and the criminal trial of O.J. Simpson opened in L.A. It all happened in 1995. Okay, let's back up to March of 1981. That's when President Reagan was shot by would-be assassin John Hinckley. It took the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms just 2 hours to trace the gun. Actually, tracing guns has never really been the problem. The real challenge has been disseminating that information that has been traced to field officers quickly. Which brings us to the ATF's newest tool of the trade, Online Lead.
Shots fired in our nation's capital. Ambulance workers rush to save a man's life. But as his condition worsens, the ambulance must pull over and render additional assistance. But then, the gunman steps up to the ambulance.
He asked how the person was doing in the ambulance, and the supervisor said he was in bad condition and can you leave the area. He then pushed the supervisor out of the way, opened the back of the ambulance door, and emptied his gun into the person and also shot a paramedic.
2 guns were recovered and sent to the National Tracing Center in Washington, D.C. There, ATF traced the firearms to the original purchaser. Along with hundreds of thousands of other gun traces, these 2 also became part of an experimental database called Online Lead. The ATF hoped one day the database would be used to quickly disseminate gun traces to investigators in the field. That day came on November 29, 1999.
Online Lead will greatly enhance law enforcement's ability to detect, imprison, and deter criminals, the criminals behind the criminal who are illegally supplying guns to our communities.
Investigators will have immediate and direct access to the statistics and information provided by that database. Trace information will now be available nationwide within 24 hours of a completed trace.
The system presently contains more than 1 million crime gun traces.
We have computerized our firearms traces all the way back to 1989.
Dennis Murphy serves as the project's lead coordinator.
Let's say we wanted to know what firearms were traced in 1999 on Minnesota Avenue in Washington, D.C. If you're a local police officer, it would be helpful for you to know how many crime guns have been recovered this year on that stretch of road.
The first gun in this fictional example shows where the gun was purchased, information on Joe Doe, the original purchaser, where the gun was recovered, the fact that Officer Dave Smith requested the trace, and the details on the weapon itself. Many of the recovered guns are stored in this firearms library in Washington, D.C. Special Agent Tracy Height walked me through the vault, identifying conventional guns and rifles, and then some more rare firearms like this self-contained silenced machine gun.
These are just a few of the firearms that we have in our firearms library. Many of these are in the firearms trace database. They've been recovered in crimes, and ATF agents have submitted these for our firearms library. They help us determine the function and capability of firearms that are involved in cases that are ongoing.
Online Lead can tell you just about anything you want to know about most of these guns.
When a gun is recovered for law enforcement, having instant access to more than 1 million records is invaluable. But what Online Lead can do better than any human being can is to identify multiple gun sales and pinpoint gun trafficking.
In the fight against the illegal sale of firearms and gun trafficking, ATF is counting on Online Lead to be their very best weapon at getting the criminal behind the criminal. Consider the 1998 case where a New York City police officer was shot. Thanks to Online Lead, the recovered gun led back to a suspected gun trafficker and to other trafficking organizations that, according to James Johnson, Treasury Undersecretary for Enforcement.
The suspects in this trafficking organization were linked to more than 30 illegally purchased firearms. 7 of those were recovered from juveniles, from drug dealers, and 1 gun was found on a playground.
And in fact, there was more to that ambulance shooting in Washington, D.C. The 2 guns recovered were just the tip of the iceberg.
The first we found out was purchased in Maryland. The second was purchased in Missouri. And we later ascertained that this was one of 1,600 firearms that was illegally trafficked by a federally licensed firearms dealer who was selling weapons off the books.
ATF tells me another good indicator of illegal gun trafficking is a short time to crime, meaning the time between when the firearm is sold to the time the gun is recovered by police happens in a matter of days or weeks. Still ahead on CyberCrime.
The web is going wireless.
How secure are wireless communications? We'll hear from Tom Wheeler from the Cellular Telecommunications Industry Association in this week's Chaos Theory.
Welcome back. It's time for our C3 panel to answer one of your cybercrime questions. Dan from Penfield, Pennsylvania, tells us that his college requires its students to use a particular internet service provider, and students may not choose another ISP. Given that, can the school still monitor a student's use of the internet or email? For this one, we go to the chairman of the board at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, Brad Templeton. Your cybercrime hat is in the mail, Dan, and here's Templeton's answer.
Well, if you're at a company, you'd probably be out of luck. That's why I recommend that most people get a personal email account at like Yahoo or Hotmail so they can do things privately. At a school, however, things are a bit different. You should stand on the principle of academic freedom. Now, students don't get as much of that as faculty do, but they do deserve some, and private communications are a foundation of that freedom. I'm Brad Templeton.
Thanks, Brad. This is the C3 panel you helped us create so far. We keep adding new members like Sir Dipstick, the cult of the dead cow hacker who wrote the remote access program Back Orifice. Be sure to check out the C3 panel on our site. You'll find it just below the security scanner. Now let's turn our attention to chaos theory. Soon you'll be able to get on the web anywhere, anytime. A wireless world will, without a doubt, bring its own advantages. But does giving up wires also mean giving up security on the net? Tom Wheeler, President and CEO of the Cellular Telecommunications Industry Association, is in an excellent position to share a chaos theory of his own.
The web is going wireless, and will cease to become a place and more be a presence, any place, anytime. But many people say, well, wait a minute, what about security? These signals are going back and forth across the airwaves. Do I have to worry about that? Fortunately or unfortunately, the industry had to deal with that issue back before the days of the net, when people were stealing the voice signals and fraudulently running up large bills. To do that, the industry put in place a sophisticated hardware and software algorithm system that provides great security in identifying exactly who is using the phone or the device and whether or not that individual is authorized. Those systems are now in place. That means that wireless delivery of data is very secure, identifying the individual who is using it. And there are even better systems coming in, new standards that will be dynamic. The key to good wireless internet usage is going to be security. And that security is there because of the experiences we've lived through previously.
Well, Alex, he makes some interesting points, but clearly you would expect him to say that given his position.
Yes, you would expect him to be a proponent of that particular technology.
So we agree on this.
We do agree on this.
All right. Well, that's it for another episode of CyberCrime. We're glad you could join us.
And we expect to see you back here next week. This is one of the stories we're working on.
It actually was the largest ever global internet law enforcement effort to combat internet fraud.
GetRichQuick.com, a planned attack on get-rich-quick scams. 150 organizations in 28 countries surf the net targeting phony websites. Find out about the crackdown next week. So join us at the same time next week. And hey, in the meantime, take time to write us. Email address is cybercrime@zdtv.com. You can also chat with us on Mondays between 8 and 9 p.m.
And remember, you can always find out more details on today's stories, plus late-breaking news at our website, that's cybercrime.com. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.